So a quick PSA, Tuesday night when we're here for our next meeting, the regular glass doors should be accessible. The concrete that's out there was only poured at 10 o'clock this morning. So even though it looks hard, it's not hard. So things will change again by Tuesday. There'll be a ramp out there for you to come up because we've had to raise things up to meet the new parking lot and the ADA regs. And you can still well, that door might be blocked because they have to do that sidewalk, but Tuesday you should be able to get in that door, like regular entrance.
Okay, thank you. Correspondent meeting advertised on 11/11/25. Departments, fire department. Jim Beam. Chief Jim Beam.
I don't think on the table. This is really messing me up. Looking for consideration for an approval for pay application number 17 for Bolton Incorporated. In the amount of $269,994.47. I know this is a week earlier than from our normal meeting, but I see no reason not to pay this pay application. Unless there's any objections, I would move to pay the application.
I'll second.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Batdorf.
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
I'm all out of whack here with the different order. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have for this evening.
Okay, tackling the 2026 budget, ambulance fund.
So the board may recall that we discussed this at your last meeting, and the issue is that for February and March of 2026, the general fund would have to carry these costs. Then the tax money would come in. This is at the current millage of 0.34 mils. The tax money would come in, but would not be enough to have sufficient carryover because it has to pay the general fund back, would not be sufficient carryover for the beginning of 2027. So the Board of Commissioners wanted some demonstration of different millages, and you can see what I did there. The 0.34 mil column is what we spoke about previously. Then I did 0.36, 0.38, and 0.4, and what that revenue would be. And all of those are relative to the current cost of the contract of $308,880, which is $45 per household with the respective number of households, which is about 6,800, I believe. So I just need some direction from the board as to what you would like us to do. Technically, you can defer this to your next budget meeting. You don't need to decide now, but it is recommended that something be adjusted in the millage.
So I guess the way I look at it, there's two different issues going on here. One, where we're obviously depleted in our fund balance, hence the reason Jean did what she did. Two, the contract expires after this year, so there's going to be a renegotiation. Generally speaking, things don't go down when you go in a renegotiation. So we'll have two problems to solve next year if we don't solve one of them this year, one of them being the fund balance being depleted. I would actually go higher than what Jean has here. I would go up to like $500,000. That would reestablish us at the 30% that we need to be at. And that way we don't have to raise because of the higher contract and raise to get our fund balance up next time. We can just kind of address one issue now and then want to address another issue next year.
That's certainly reasonable. What I can do is construct it with that millage. you do not have to definitely pull the trigger on this until you give the motion for advertising the budget. So if anyone has difficulty with that as a criterion, you still have time to change your mind. But unless I receive other direction from the board, I'll proceed on that basis. You certainly can, but it's not finally moved on until you adopt the tax ordinance. Excuse me.
Just curious, Greg. Landing at the half mil, is there? I'm just, as always, like cautious about over piggy banking. Is that like, you think the hard and fast right place to land?
It conceded the auditor's recommendation, which is a pretty general recommendation I see in municipalities everywhere. So it's not like our guys are being, out of line. It actually probably is slightly under that, but it's going to be pretty damn close to like where we need to be at for 30%.
Oh, I see that. So the 0.5 would bring us closer to what the auditor, because the 0.4 would be 41,000 or whatever.
Yeah, we would be shy if we only did 0.4. If you go to 0.5, that's going to be pretty close. And in all honesty, like if the CPI, I know I said 3.3, if the CPI is 3.5 in December, I'm not going to be shocked. So if anything like that could end up being conservative. So that, I guess that's a rambling way of saying that number, that expense number could be even higher.
It makes sense to me. There's no other objections. Yeah, I would move to adopt the budget, or is it tentatively, or?
Yeah, you don't have to do anything right now. I just need enough nodding heads that we'll proceed on this basis until we put a whole package together. I will say, from a residential point of view, that $45 per household for a year of insurance, so to speak, about if you need an ambulance and you don't have to pay any more than what your health insurance would pay, that's a pretty good deal. It still is a pretty good deal.
Okay,
Especially if you actually use an ambulance one time,
Yes.
then it's a very good deal.
Yes.
right,
Yeah. It pays for itself immediately.
okay, well, you have my head nod.
Oh, thank you. Then the next item is, I just wanted to follow up with the board about the refuse budget. We do this every year, but fortunately, because of the timing, Patty was, and she gets all the credit for this little table. Patty was able to find out the 2026 refuse fees for various municipalities, and lo and behold, Cumru is the lowest in the area. Shillington comes close, but Shillington had to, bless you, make a big adjustment in their services. They went from collections twice a week to once a week. So they're actually more similar to Cumru Township now. And you can see the spread of the other municipalities. Spring does not have it tiered anymore in terms of adults, but they do have an urban district and a rural district, and they do have two different fees. The urban district fee is right in the middle, and the rural district fee is down towards the bottom. So that is of interest, and it's very possible that they won't be the only municipality doing something like that. Now, just like with sewer rates, no two municipalities do it identically the same. There are always little tweaks that occur, and you can see all the notes off to the side. So sometimes someone would come up to you and say, well, I paid da-da-da-da-da-da, and it gets really detailed. That's because there are little quirks with each municipality. I'll give you an example. In West Reading, they have, you buy a tag for a bulky item, and the cost of that tag varies depending on the weight of an item. So that's different from Burn, which has one bulk item per week with no charge, which is what we currently have as well, with no additional charge. So there are variations from municipality to municipality, and what we try to do, we annualize it to get as close to apples as possible. So that's where we're at with the refuse fee. I am presuming that the board will not want to change this. Let me know if that is not the case. Okay, if there are no questions on, no further questions on the refuse fund, the next fund is the sewer fund. Now, just to orient everyone, there are actually two sewer funds. There is what I call the checking account, which is the 803 fund. That's what most people think of when they talk about the sewer fund. That's when you pay your sewer bill, which, by the way, just sewer bills just went out, that it gets deposited into this fund. When I pay the city of Reading quarterly treatment bill, it comes out of this fund. So the idea of this fund is so that the fees that are paid for sanitary sewer usage, which is based on water consumption, pay for the maintenance of the system, the maintenance of the people who maintain the system, and paying for the treatment and transportation costs to the other municipalities, principally Reading, that we are connected to, and also to gradually build up enough money in the 803 fund to transfer over to the capital sewer fund, the 809 fund, to be used for sewer repairs, sewer replacement, and the replacement of equipment as well, all the capital costs. Years ago, we did not have a regular program of replacing sanitary sewer mains. Mr. McNichols, and then when Mr. Yost became the assistant super, those two guys have to take credit for establishing a program of regular replacement of sewer mains, and increasing the amount of investigative work. We usually call that TV and grouting, which determines which mains are most in need of replacement. A lot of our sewer system is over 60 years old, and stuff happens. And also different materials. For example, some of the board may recall that a couple of years ago, we replaced the entire main in High Boulevard, over 4,000 feet, 4,000 lineal feet. That pipe was made of clay, and sooner or later, clay deteriorates and has to be replaced. And the reason we do all this replacement is not just to take away people's sewage, but also what is affectionately known as I&I, the infiltration and inflow of groundwater and rainwater, because when that water gets into the sewer system and to the treatment plant, everybody pays for that water. So the more rainwater and groundwater you have getting into the sewer system, the more everybody pays. So all of this work essentially pays for itself by limiting the infiltration and inflow of that other water that is not involved with people's consumption of potable water. Okay, so after that setup, you can see the first part of the budget, and I won't go through this line by line unless the board has questions, but the first part of the budget is the collections. The board may recall that we increased the sewer rate in November of 2024 to $145 per quarter for the first 7,500 gallons for those accounts on public water, and $200 a quarter for, which is 1.4 of an EDU, for those accounts that are on well water. And Cumru Township has over 600 properties that are on sanitary sewer but use wells, so that's a lot. right now, the latest sewer billing, the latest 2 sewer billings were approximately $1.4 million if we collected everything. Obviously, we do not collect everything. The sewer has a lower collection rate than taxes. So about 98 to 99% of people pay their property taxes because they want to stay in their home. They don't want it sold under tax sale or some other action. But there are, it's slower collections for sewer. We also send delinquent accounts over to a collection agency, which we also recently did. So even though we're billing 1.4, a little over 1.45 million, we may not collect 1.45 million. And I can certainly adjust that assumed number for collection. It's a little bit hard to say. There are, just like with the refuse fee, you've heard my infamous recitations about there are certain property owners who just never pay. And that's the same with sewer. And then there are certain property owners who they have a leak or they have extraordinary bills and they catch up gradually. And let me know if you have any questions on that type of thing. Then there are various smaller revenues from our interconnections with other municipalities. We're connected to Shillington, to Moton, to Spring, to Robeson. And there are some sewer permits. Now, I will tell you, if there's a new sewer connection, the bulk of that money goes into the sewer capital fund. That's called a tapping fee. But there are inspection fees that go into this regular checking account, if you will. Then you can see the expenses outgoing, most of them being personnel expenses. I would draw your attention on the second page down to almost the very bottom, where it says operations services. The one line 8421,810 is the sewer treatment cost with the city of Reading. For the first time since I've been doing this, we did not get the treatment and transportation rates per EDU by this meeting. I did email the city of Reading and ask them, you know, where are they? Because it's hard to budget when you don't know what the rate is. And apparently they only just finished their CPA audit for the sewer department, and they're calculating those rates as we speak, so to speak. For this, I'm assuming one, that the next payment we're making to the city of Reading, which will be this week or next week, will be around 550,000, which is a typical amount. That is actually within what I would have expected. And I assumed at least a 10% increase for next year, based on the fact that I don't have their rates yet. What I have one more thing to say about the sewer fund, but I would like to come back to, I'd like to revisit this, hoping that next week I get those rates from the city of Reading so I can recalculate. I would feel much more comfortable about this budget if I had those figures. The last thing I want to say about this budget is on the last page. We had budgeted for 2025 to transfer $1 million over from the 803 fund to the 809 fund for construction projects. Now, we have two big construction projects that we want to get to: the Angelica Interceptor, which you've heard me opine about that ad nauseum, and Ardmore Avenue, which is another project that's expected to cost about $1 million to $1.5 million. That's over in Montrose Manor. We did not transfer that money, at least not yet, because those two projects have grant applications outstanding, and hopefully the Commonwealth Financing Agency met yesterday to decide whether or not we're going to get those grants. No matter the outcome of those applications, even if the state denies those applications, I would totally advocate moving ahead with those two projects. The Angelica project is going to be a multi-step project. We need permits first. We need a lot of prep work first. That's going to be a multi-million-dollar cost. I think right now it's estimated 7 million, something like that, but over a period of years. That's not a, cashing a check for $7 million all at once, even $1 million. There's a lot of pre-engineering that happens with that project. The other project, the Angelica project, the Ardmore project is more of a standard. There's bid specs, there's an existing pipe, you bid the project, get the bids back, kind of more of a standard project that you would expect with a road or any other type of infrastructure. We're recommending that we just plow ahead with those projects, one on the slow track, one on the more typical, quicker within a year track. And to do that, to start those projects, I'm recommending that you authorize in this fourth quarter a transfer of $500,000 by the end of the year into the capital fund. So it goes from the 803 fund to the capital fund, the 809 fund. And that next year, we transfer another $500,000 for that and $74,000 to replace truck 90. You can see at the bottom that raising the sewer rate in November of 2024 did exactly what we needed it to do, and that was to accumulate some balance in the sewer fund. And even if we transfer $500,000 during this year, we're still estimated to have almost $2 million in that fund. And then in 2026, you can see if we're going to, when we get to the capital fund, I'm talking about spending $1 million. So that's why there's a big difference between the end of year 2025, 1.9 million, and the end of year 2026, 1.3 million, because we're going to spend some of that down replacing the Ardmore sewer main. These sewer replacement projects save money in the long run, and Ardmore really needs it, in my opinion.
And I also pave roads.
Yes, thank you.
You can't dig up a 12-foot deep sewer main without destroying the road, so you end up rebuilding the road by the time you're all done. So that's another added bonus. And yeah, that pipe, we've grouted it twice in the last 10 years, but it's in rough shape.
To kind of go along with that, to give you the entire picture, if you go to the next page, which is the sewer savings fund, what I'm calling the 809 fund, the revenue for this fund comes from tapping fees. So let's say, and you'll see I have 20 EDUs of tapping fees on the top line. That is on the assumption that Hawthorne is going to build a building. And their buildings are all 20 units each for their building, for Hawthorne, that apartment complex, 10. So if they file a building permit for their first building, that'll be 20 EDUs. So that's one source of revenue to this fund. The other source is a lot of interest because we keep most of this money in the Pliget account, which gets a decent interest. Now, actually, Mr. Greg Miller will know more than me. I am not sure what's going to happen with interest rates. There was some movement in Fed personnel today. I don't, that's kind of a wag. Yeah. And the other source of revenue to this fund are transfers from the 803 fund. So people pay their sewer bills, we save up the money, we put it in the capital fund to fix sewer mains, to ultimately save everybody money by eliminating infiltration, inflow, and paved roads. So you can see I have that $500,000 transfer if the board authorizes it in the last quarter of this year. And then another $250,000 transfer in for next year, and I gotta make sure these numbers match up. Hope they do.
That's what I was just gonna say. I thought it was 500.
Yeah, so I gotta fix that. I apologize for that. I fixed it in one place and not another. You can see the truck for 74,000 there. And then for expenses, $1.25 million in capital expenses for construction, because it all comes out of this fund. So I will fix that error.
I'll make the motion to transfer the 500,000 from the
Okay,
803 fund to the 809 fund.
I'll second.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Craig Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Batdorf,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell.
Yes.
Ms. Rowe.
Yes,
Rao, sorry.
yes.
Thank you. We are working on a permit, the first permit we need for the Angelica Interceptor project. That is gonna be permit heavy because it's along the Angelica Creek there. So the DEP's going to scrutinize those permits. So the sewer fund, the two sewer funds taken together are doing what they need to do. I would draw your attention to the very end of the sewer savings fund where it says that approximately $3,055,000 at the end of 2026. You have to recall that $3 million, approximately $3 million of the sewer savings fund has already been encumbered for the Angelica project. So that is the seed money for the Angelica project. And so our target in the sewer savings, the 803 sewer checking account, so to speak, is to always keep around $1 million in there, because every time I pay the city of Reading, I'm paying $500,000 plus. And if it's a rainy quarter, I'm paying a lot more than $500,000. And in the 809 fund, the savings fund, we want to keep that $3 million in there until we actually start building this Angelica project. I am not recommending an increase in the sewer rate for next year. It would take some kind of unforeseen circumstance, with the caveat that I still need to get those treatment and transportation rates from the city of Reading, and I'll feel more comfortable with all of this once I get those. So this one I'm going to have to revisit once I get those rates. But otherwise, I'm pretty comfortable with it. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that was the lining project in Flying Hills. We took that out of maintenance of system because we weren't putting in a new pipe. We were lining or maintaining an existing pipe. That was a $50,000 project, I think, around 50,000. The other thing that while you're talking about that particular line item, the solicitor is in discussion with the owners of the Ocean State Job Lot Plaza. The so-called Shillington Plaza, the old Kmart Plaza, is owned by the company called Ocean State Job Lot. And they have filled all of the spaces in their building except for one. They believe they have a tenant. They tentatively have a tenant. And the municipal authority has asked them to line there's a sewer main that goes along the back of the building. And the municipal authority has asked them to line that in consideration of a loading dock that this new tenant wants to have. Each tenant basically has their own loading dock. And this new loading dock would encroach on the sewer easement. It doesn't cover the sewer main itself, but it encroaches on the easement. And they asked the sewer authority for some consideration. The sewer authority said, we don't want to have to maintain that pipe. Would you consider a lining project? And right now, what's being discussed is potentially the township lining that and them reimbursing the township for that cost. Now, that is not 100%, no ink has been signed on anything yet, but we're in very productive discussions with that, with Ocean State Job Lot. They have been very communicative and very good to work with. So that I would, since we took one lining project out of maintenance of system, I would take that cost also out of maintenance of system. That's projected to be around 21,000, that particular project. Yes. Right, because last year we replaced pumps.
Ms. O'Leary, could you just speak into the microphone?
The pump station maintenance, we didn't spend anywhere near the 40,000 this year, but we're budgeting 40,000 again next year when we only spent like 8,000 this year.
No, that's a good point. So Bob, would you like to keep that amount? Do you have other projects in mind?
We've kind of always kept that at a decent sized number because things do break. A tree falls on something down there. A pump decides to get something caught up in it. Everything's working very well, knock on wood right now, but it's kind of a insurance policy in a sense. A reserve.
And in 24, you were above that number. It looks like, I don't know what it looks like before 24, but to kind of illustrate Bob's point.
We've had a gradual project of replacing major components at the Flying Hills Pumping Station over the past several years. It was the generator, the pumps.
The pumps are $30,000 a piece. The electronics were 50,000. We have protections down there, but a lightning strike and everything's cooked. Stuff like that. So it's always kind of been a reserve just in case something went wrong with it.
One other question, sewer engineering down near the bottom. We spent 161,000 when we had budgeted 500,000. Are there plans to actually spend more money on sewer engineering next year to justify this 500,000?
Yes, Ardmore, a $1.5 million project. The reason we budgeted so high was that was before we applied for that grant. So we thought we would have to take all of the costs out of there. And since we did not do the Ardmore project in 2025, we simply underspent the line item while we were waiting for this decision by the state about the grant. This particular grant program, I think it's the PA Small Water and Sewer Program, does not pay for the engineering. It pays for the actual construction cost. So I kept the engineering high because if we're going to do a project like that, that will involve quite a bit of engineering.
We've had reserves like this in the budget for over 20 years. So it's not uncommon. We also have the stream erosion that's going along the Angelica Creek near Mountain View Road right now. And there's always things that come up with engineering. We haven't had any severe weather, knock on wood, but when it happens, and then you got to fix it. So that's why we have some of those reserves like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So on the revenue side, like we're not changing our intake and in terms of our fee, but we're down about, I don't know, call it 300,000 or so. How does it go down when we're not changing the fee?
People not paying.
So basically, we think people aren't going to pay as much next year.
I'm a little skeptical. Our collection right now, the one after we just sent the amount of money we have in delinquent accounts is about $750,000 right now. So that's where my skepticism comes from.
Have you been seeing an increase lately?
I don't think so, but I can analyze that a little more. What I'm seeing less of, in my opinion, is not so much more people going into collection, but paying less to get out of collection. So when they're in collections, they can establish a payment plan with the collection agency. And what was happening last year with a lot of home sales and people were getting incredible prices for their homes, they would take care of their outstanding debt during settlement. Somebody was going to pay that bill, the buyer or the seller, but somebody was going to pay it. When sales began to diminish, that's less of that process, less of people being able to pay off their debt by selling their home. So that's not the entirety of everybody that's in delinquent accounts, but it is a significant subset. So that stopped. And I think fewer people are keeping up with their payment plans. But I can analyze it further to
No,
give you some.
I don't think you
A
have to.
recent phenomenon, Gene, that they're not keeping up, or has this been a trend upwards or what?
The amount overall of delinquent accounts has gone up as the sewer fee has gone up. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, there is a strong correlation there. I think overall, the number of accounts that are delinquent overall, just like with the refuse, has not gone up. But then you also have people who struggle to, when they pay, if they're already in collections and they're continuing to get sewer bills and they pay, that payment goes to the oldest debt. Yes, goes to the oldest debt first. So some people do not keep up with their current payment and then they end up accumulating more debt. Yeah. And then we're having less of these clearing out of an account due to a settlement. With that has been significant. You'll see in some of the other accounts with cert fees, settlement fees. There from 2023 to 2024, there was a significant reduction because just of the number of property or refis. That's the other thing, that people were more able to refi. And we're seeing many fewer of those, and they would use some of that to deal with their debt.
I was going to say, Gene, no further analysis required. I would agree with you. I think the first half of next year is going to be tough.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked if even that ends up being, aggressive, but we'll see. It's fine where it's at. One last question.
Yeah.
The sewer MMO
Yes.
NU, that kind of skips up pretty good from 24 to 25 to 26.
Yeah, I anticipated that question. That's because of the conversion from the defined contribution pension to the defined benefit pension and catching up with the actuarial liability associated with that. I knew you were going to ask me that.
That's all I have.
Thank you. The state liquid fuels fund, I just did that. The state liquid fuels fund is a very simple fund. And you can't, so there are two sources of main revenue for the state liquid fuels fund. Oh, I guess I should take a step back. Sorry. Liquid fuels. When you fill up your gas tank, some of that gas tax money goes to the municipalities in the form of state liquid fuels fund. And there is a formula partly based on population, partly based on road miles, partly based on the amount of overall gas tax money that is accumulated by the state and then gets divvied up among the municipalities. That is the third revenue line there. It says state grant. And it's, you can see it's been gradually going down a little bit. I cannot entirely tell you why. We don't have less roads. I am presuming that is because there's less overall revenue to the state pool of money that gets divvied out. It's not a tremendous reduction, but nonetheless, it's there. The $15,760 is what's called road turnback. Okay. So back before 1986, Church Road and Mountain View Road were both state roads. And that's one way you know that is that there's some quirkiness about parts of the roads like the catch basins, the storm catch basins and things. There are some, they were very old roads that the state had back before there was even a PennDOT. It was called Department of Highways. And then in 1986, the township agreed to take back those roads and getting a certain amount of revenue each year. And this amount of revenue does not change. It remains totally static. It does not include the bridge at 625 in Church, by the way, just to be clear. The bridge remains under the state's control and with the state. And, you know, they recently did some kind of rehab project on that. And of course, there's a small amount of interest. State liquid fuels is intended to be used for things having to do with roads. You can use it for payroll. However, that is a poor practice and I highly, highly recommend against it. It becomes an auditing nightmare. You can use it for things other than road paving, like streetlights. Frankly, with the number of streetlights Cumru has, there's not enough money in the liquid fuels fund to pay for everything associated with streetlights. So we have for many years limited what we use state liquid fuels funds for snow and ice removal, i.e. salt, road salt, hot patching material, cold patching material, outright road construction or reconstruction, in other words, macadaming. And there are some rules about a certain amount of money out of state liquid fuels can be used to buy equipment. And you can see that we paid for truck 73. This is that truck that it took, how many months to get? 36 months? It took a very, very long time for this truck to come in. We had ordered it back in 2022. So but we reserve the rest of it. We always budget about $100,000 for road salt. I cannot tell you from year to year how much of that we are going to use. You can see in 2025, we used a little bit over 100,000. Two previous winters we used under 100,000 because we had mild winters. There is almost no way to predict how much we're going to use from winter to winter. And if I get to the point where I can predict the winters, I'm quitting because I'm going to make a whole lot of money elsewhere. We've accumulated some balance in this fund. We've already received the notice from the state. We get the notice from ahead of time how much money we're going to get in the next year. And we put those together and we can do some paving. Now, the next project on the list for road construction is the rest of Hunter's Road, an overlay on the rest of Hunter's Road. That's one that you authorized us to apply for one of the LSA grants for, which we're going to do before the 30th. So at the very least, we can do some kind of road project this year. The road project can change if the board chooses a different project, but we will be accumulating enough money to do a significant road project next year. You do not set a millage, you do not set a fee on this fund, but I wanted you to see what was going on with this fund.
A couple questions on this one.
Mhm.
This is particularly interesting. First question, I guess, is could you just, I know you mentioned some of the things, is there perhaps far more ways that this money could spend, maybe not far more, but like, is that a pretty comprehensive list of how this money is actually like legally allowed to be allocated?
It can be allocated elsewhere. I would caution you to be very careful, and especially I caution you strongly not to use it for payroll. The auditors will even, well, they can't give you pre-audit advice, but the first question they always ask is, are you using it for payroll? Because then they have to allocate their many more days for the audit.
When we use it for equipment, we have to reimburse the fund when we get rid of the equipment.
Yes. So when this truck is sold, we have to put whatever revenue we get back in. So the state tracks the VIN numbers. You can use it for streetlights. You can use it for things like street signs. And I think things like line painting, they have to be directly road related.
Where my mind was actually going is ambulance and the shortfall we're
That
talking
you
about
can't
in the
use it for.
beginning.
That is
I was wondering if
outside.
we might be able to cover some of
No,
that
that's a
gap.
very creative idea. But that is outside the scope of what you're allowed to use liquid fuels for. It has to be road related. There is a list. I can certainly provide it for you. So it looks like next year we'll be tearing up Ardmore Avenue, one either with a grant or without a grant. But they'll get a new road out of it, and hopefully Hunter's Road as well. Remember, we did the big reconstruction on what I would call the front side or the north side of Hunter's Road. This would be from the gun club down that area. So
You might have said this, so I apologize if you did. The budgeted expenses for next year, do those account for the grant coming through, or is it budgeted without the grant coming through? Maybe I just,
let's put it this way. It's if the grant comes
Sorry.
through, we're gonna do more roads.
I see,
That's what we're gonna do.
I see the state grant, I'm just blind.
Well, state.
Oh, that's the actual
In
regular
this case,
proceeds.
that refers to the liquid fuels
Okay.
fund. So if we get this other grant, we'll do more roads. We'll pave like crazy. That, at least that would be my recommendation. I anticipated that Bob would agree with that as well. But that's a really good question. So I know this has been a much shorter meeting than last time. I was told I needed to be shorter. In regard to executive session, the solicitor is asking that we defer this discussion to your meeting on the 18th. So we're not, unless you really desire one for some reason, we are not going to have an executive session.
Back to roads for just 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
I can spend $5 million tomorrow on roads. That's how far behind we are on roads. That's conservative. So if you can fund it, we can pave it.
So you probably didn't see an email I just sent out this afternoon, or maybe you did. We just got something over from Delta about 20 million RCAP. I don't know if we can talk about that in here because it wasn't on the agenda, but they need to submit it by tomorrow.
Ooh. What is it for? You know, I didn't see it because I was in meetings all day.
And it sounds like it's pretty important and related to our fiscal year 26 budget, so I think.
So they opened up a special authorization, I guess. It's a capital budget itemized bill that'll happen strictly from the Senate. This is not a typical thing. But basically you can submit for this RCAP funding. You can have it effectively for 10 years. It expires after 10 years. But it's not the typical RCAP application that you would go through. It's an authorization form that they filled out, and they basically ticked a ton of different boxes that says we can use it for any of these things. It goes directly over to Judy, and then Judy passes it along to the Senate Democratic Caucus, and they will start working on this next week to literally write it into the budget.
Okay, so I think we can do this, and here's why. This is that first step that's required. This is not money that we can't tap next year $20 million. This is that preliminary step in the RACP grant program where the Senate has to say, okay, when the governor or the executive branch opens up an RACP grant round, this municipality has the opportunity to tap into this $20 million reserve amount, so to speak. The money's not sitting in a bank. Nobody's moving any money right now. This is just a kind of, you have to throw your name in the hat. And then at some point, the executive branch pulls stuff out of the hat and says, well, okay, now you can fund it. So, my belief is this is not about expenditure of money, and I think you could make an authorization for Delta to put us on the list. Basically, you're asking your representative, Senator Schwank, to put us on a list, is what you're asking.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it abundantly clear what we're talking about is not the money going to Judy and then money going
Right.
to the Democratic caucus. We're talking about the request
It's an
going to her. She
request.
brings it to the caucus puts us on the list. If we
Yeah.
don't get put on the list,
Right,
we have no spot in line to get the money.
right. This is not a grant application. This is asking your senator to please put us on a list. And so I think because it doesn't involve the expenditure of money, because it does not involve a contract, I think you can authorize this.
I think it would be crazy not to, so I would move to authorize it.
Do we need to do a vote on this then, Gene?
Like generally, what kind of boxes are there? Just, it would be nice for the rest of the board to know what kind of projects. And I'm assuming this has to do, it's connected with the state budget finally moving.
Yes, and hence the reason it's got like a short fuse on it
Right.
too. But they tick like literally almost every box basically. It's under nature of project, construction, infrastructure related to a project, abatement of hazardous materials, acquisition, buildings and land, redevelopment, renovation / rehabilitation, and then the infamous others.
Those are those are things that would qualify for us to spend the money on.
Well, it does.
Infrastructure, done, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, easily under, almost any one of those boxes, we
Yeah.
could easily
Yeah.
hit those, to Bob's point earlier.
Now, just to be clear, when an RACP grant round is open, it is probably the most political grant program I can think of, because the executive branch opens the grant round and they kind of steer the money toward whatever their priorities are. And these grant rounds don't come up on a regular basis. So for example, the local share account money, the gambling money, that comes up on a regular basis. There are many other state programs that come up on a regular basis, the recycling grants, et cetera. RACP does not come up on a regular basis, but you can't have a ghost of a chance of tapping into when a round opens unless you're on the preliminary list. And that's what we're talking about. This is step one. So I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Batdorf,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we were in meetings all day and all day yesterday.
I mean, I only saw this at like, I don't know, 3 o'clock or something like that.
Well,
So
thank you for bringing it up. And this is pretty much how it happened the last time, I think Mr. Setley brought it to the township like, hey, they're doing this. And no one really knows. It's strictly at the discretion of the state level politicians about when these windows open, and then up to the governor when the actual grant applications open. It's
A lot of this money's gonna go to SEPTA.
what's that?
A lot of this money will go to SEPTA in Philadelphia.
That is true. That is true. But we don't even have a chance of competing if we're not on the list. So thank you very much. Yes, Ruth.
I think there's a small mistake on here under the fourth quarter for this state road turnback. You have another 15,760, but we only get that once a year.
Right.
The total is right, but that 15,760 should be zero.
Yep, you're correct. I can fix that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
two quick items from Public Works. You sent me an email late this afternoon about trees in a triangle that the township owns between Montrose, Tremont, and Parkside. We refer to it as the Montrose Mini Park. There were 3 large trees there. 2 of them were dying. We had a large branch, very large branch crack off the one, and the other tree didn't look so healthy. We had an arborist come in, take a look at them, and we decided to take them down. We got a good price to get them on the ground. We did that yesterday, and over the next few weeks, we'll take the wood away. It's unfortunate to take those big trees down like that, but all you have to do is look around and see how many trees are dying from disease and things, and they're just a hazard, because that branch alone had to weigh 1,000 pounds. So it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things we have to do, and it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. But it
Did
was
somebody
worth it.
ask?
Yes, and I will respond to your email tomorrow in writing.
Yeah, that's fine. We got an email, we being Leisha and I, from a resident asking about these trees.
That triangle of land is, Montrose Manor is one of the oldest subdivisions in the township, 1925. And at that time, it was fashionable to have what some people called at the time vest pocket parks. These little tiny snippets of land. There's one of them actually in Shillington on the Lynn Oak area. They have a bench sitting in the middle of the road. That's one of those. This particular little area had 3 large trees that are original to the development. Trees do have a lifespan, and I saw that at least 2 of them are ash, and that's probably why they're dying, because the ash are afflicted with the borer. That's what happened to a lot of the trees on our campus here. They all got afflicted, and that's what you see in the area. The ash borer has really decimated the tree population, and we took them down because it's a liability issue. When they start dropping those really huge branches, it becomes a liability concern for the township. The only way to access this little snippet of land is through alleys. It doesn't even have road frontage. So that's the story behind
And I
it.
can tell you from personal experience, living not too far from that my power's gone out like 8 times in the last 20 months, sometimes for hours on end. The last one was just a week ago
Because of trees.
because of trees coming down when those storms hit. It was like a meteor shower last week. It was really something. So anyway, the other thing is, what's the deal for Tuesday night at the regular meeting? Do you want to go back up to the head table, or do you want to stay this way? And then keep in mind you have a budget meeting then Thursday. We can do whatever you need us to do. I need to get the temperature of the board, as Gene would say. How do you want to sit here next Tuesday and Thursday?
My preference personally is I like this format for the budget meetings, being able to, I think it's a much more engaged discussion.
Breaking
But yeah,
it
for
down for the
Tuesday, I think,
regular meeting.
I think for the regular meeting, I think the regular.
Tuesday, you want to go back to up there, Thursday back to this. Not a problem.
That'd probably be the best.
Okay, done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
For what, are we going to this executive session?
No, we, the solicitor would like us to defer that to Tuesday.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.